Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Fire at Will podcast, an Overwatch podcast. My name is Heath Kruger. You can follow me on Twitter at Carthac, C-A-R-T-H-A-C. But more importantly, my co-host, it's a guy you may have heard of before, especially if you're familiar with the Heroes of Newerth professional scene over the past 6 years. He's been a professional broadcaster for all kinds of games, Han, TF2, SC2. I mean, the guy's got a Honcast channel. It's seen well over 40 million views. Honcast YouTube channel. It's been over 7 million views. None other than BreakyCPK, who you can find on Twitter at BreakyCPK. How's everything going tonight, man?
I'm doing good, man. Great introduction there. No, I appreciate it. You know, you came to me only about a week ago here, and you pretty much came with this idea of this podcast, and I'm like, you know what? I like Overwatch. I'm really looking forward to it, and I figured, why the hell not, essentially. So I thank you for having me on, and look forward to talking some Overwatch here, because God knows we can't play it right now.
I know. It's almost kind of like, you get that itch.
Yeah.
And people are just they just want content so much. So I'm like, well, why not jump on, talk a little bit of Overwatch, provide the content out there for everyone who's looking for it, and, maybe it'll kind of lead into something more. I don't know. Just kind of throw it out there.
Well, if there's anything I learned doing what I've been doing here in the esports industry for as long as I have, I mean, it's just you just do it. Exactly. You just got to do it, man. And if it picks up, exactly. You got to give it a try though. See where it goes.
Yeah, exactly. See what comes of it. So for our first podcast, I thought we would start out by breaking down each hero in terms of where we feel they stand on the competitive level before the beta was brought down. Does that sound good as kind of a starting point?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. So kind of going over said heroes. Are they called? Let's start with that. Are they called heroes? Is that the correct term here?
I think so. I've played League of Legends. I've heard champions, Dota. It's heroes. I mean, I guess classes. I mean, I think everyone gets kind of the general gist of it, right?
Yeah. I'm actually looking on the wiki right now, for reference, of course, and it actually does say heroes on the wiki, so
there we go. We got heroes.
There we go. Official.
The 21 Overwatch heroes. All right, so sort of a disclaimer. I figured I'd get this out of the way, as I'm sure someone will respond to, something we say, man, you're an idiot. Well, first off, these are just our opinions on the classes. It's in no way indicative how everyone feels on the current meta. We're just going to do our best to argue in favor of our tier list being correct, of course, but game's still very early, still in development, and, may completely change when the beta comes back. We have no idea what Blizzard is doing at the moment, so...
Yeah. That's kind of the big thing, I think. Again, we've been in this hiatus for, like, a month and a half now, right now, and they're going to be bringing it back, obviously, hopefully in this early February timeframe. It's not this update that we've had recently. But as you pointed out, I mean, we don't really know exactly what that ultimately is going to be. They did hint at a possibly new game mode, so that's kind of one of the things, and maybe we could even talk about that later on in this show, or save it for another one, whatever. But as far as balance goes, yeah, who knows? So this could all change, but for the time being, I think... maybe, I mean, I've mastered all the classes, frankly. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to go here. I know everything about, no. Okay,
so you beat the game already?
I beat the game, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, we got a professional here, folks. Even better.
Absolutely not, no.
I was going to say, why don't we just kind of, I know we talked about it briefly off air. You had a really good idea about the possible, at least a prediction of the next competitive mode that Blizzard has kind of hinted at bringing back, or bringing up with when they return with the beta. Well, would you kind of cover that real quick?
Well, yeah, so again, as mentioned, obviously there was hints that it might be coming back here in January. They just said here very recently a blue post was made. Not going to be coming until February. And as you pointed out, though, one of the bigger things why apparently they are being delayed is because they have a new game mode that wasn't 100% finished that's going to be brought in. So with that said, of course, all these ideas start flying through my mind. I'm sure a lot of others out there. Now, I do find this. I was also mentioning this to you. I actually had the chance to go to BlizzCon, and so to get even. Oh, you were at BlizzCon?
I was. Yes.
Oh, we didn't even meet up, man.
No,
I didn't even know you then.
Well, we really didn't even know each other as of a week ago. So, well, I knew you. You certainly didn't know me. With just about 99% of the audience out there.
All right. That makes sense then. Yes. Maybe in a future one. No, but yeah, here at the panels there, again, they made a point that they weren't going to be doing a new game mode, and even ideas like capture the flag were brought up, and they were like, that's not our focus right now. We have other focuses. We want to really get these game modes. And now, sure enough, here they are with a new game mode. So first off, I find that interesting how they've kind of changed. Shows you how Blizzard works that way. But capture the flag. Going back to that, I mean, that's one of the first ideas that I think has to hit anyone's mind, right? Like, that's kind of the core of this style of game, whatever you want to, I guess, this first-person shooter slash arena style of game, however you want to classify it. It's like capture the flag is kind of the core.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of that weird mix of FPS slash kind of like MOBA ultimate abilities.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cool mix. I really like it. The reason I wanted to bring that up to listeners is the capture the flag idea sounds so good because right now, the way I see it, and tell me if you agree or disagree on this, and with our two current game modes of capture the flag, and it's really like a point capture type system. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of group focus based kind of fights. It's back and forth. You know, you have to sit on this point for this amount of time while the other team is not able to reach that point, or, you know, push this payload by sitting on this one spot for however much time you have to do for. We don't really have a game mode that is really, it's more of a dispersing effect, you know, allowing for multiple flanker classes like Tracer, Reaper, and such to really see full effectiveness, because you really don't want classes like that going up against Reinhardt with a Mercy on him. You know, you want one-on-one situations, and that's where I feel like a lot of classes could really shine within a different game mode that really highlights and kind of shows their possible abilities in that type of game mode.
Yeah, I think where you're kind of getting at is attack defend, right? Like, that's right now the two modes. Like, it has the attackers, it has the defenders, essentially, with payload and defend the points. So in Team Fortress, you know, that's actually, I come from Team Fortress Classic background even, and I actually love to play the attack defense style of maps, but, you know, obviously it also had the capture the flag, element to it, where you're a mix. You're not purely offense, you're not purely defense, you have that blend, that mix. And so, as I know you've been bringing up before we came on here, but yeah, the idea that those pick-off situations, the 1v1s, maybe not as likely in Overwatch right now, because it does make the point that, yeah, you want to stay grouped up on this one location, whether you're the offense or the defense. So I think the idea of a capture the flag could help with that. Honestly, another game mode that also has kind of gone through my mind, though, is something like an Arathi Basin to an extent from World of Warcraft. So where it's like you have 3 points maybe, or even 5, depending on how big they want to make it. And that actually then, you know, it spreads it out. It makes a point that you have to ultimately control all 3 points for a set amount of time to ultimately win the map. So that way you are going to be thinning out, in a sense, from point to point. You're not going to be all clustered in one central location.
Yeah, I really like that idea. I didn't even think about that one. I'm a former WoW player as well, and that was my thing back in the day, back in BC and the such. That sounds like a really good idea. It would once again kind of spread everything out, make it so it's not real uniform tank, 1 or 2 supports, and DPS trying to kind of make plays happen around that while you're really focused on like static objectives. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. I like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas though, man. I mean, I've been going through and seeing what other people have, and just think back to like Halo, like Murder Ball, like there's that kind of mode, you know.
Murder Ball. I have no idea what Murder Ball would even entail.
Really? Okay, so it's essentially a person holds some artifact, whatever. In that case, it happened to be like a ball that you held. And when you have the ball, you can't actually attack, I believe, or you can't do anything like that, but you take like multiple damage, or increased damage, essentially. So, but the point is you just run around with it, and if you die, you know, it drops, the other team can pick it up, and then you have to protect that person with the ball. So it's kind of like it's constantly shifting on offense and defense in that sense.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that one.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see which direction they go. I do hope they go the direction of not having a defense offense. I mean, they've already done payload, they've already done the attack defense, so I can't see them doing that again, but yeah, I'm hoping it is at least a little different. Sounds like you're on the same page there. So
yeah, kind of break it up from the norm, so we don't really just feel so it doesn't feel like, well, you always have to play X class. It's more of, it's kind of, you know, it varies from game mode to game mode, and kind of highlights, you know, not everyone's going to be a fantastic tank, but someone might be a particularly good tracer, And those are especially the kind of I love seeing those plays personally. Watching a really good Tracer, a really good Reaper, even a really good Widowmaker, I really like as well. So I'd much rather see kind of a mix of everything.
Freaking snipers.
I know, right?
So annoying.
But
anyways, that's another subject.
So how about we start off things? Return to the topic at hand.
Okay.
First off, let's begin with tanks. And we'll start at the top here. So, for any of you that have been familiar with the competitive scene, things like the ESL tournaments, Fish Sticks Invitational, I'm sure you have seen this guy. He's just about on every map. Attack, defend. It's really tough to get around him. The S tier tank, in my opinion, I believe some call it tier 1, S tier, or however you prefer to label it. It's Reinhardt. We got a guy with 600 total health, 300 being standard HP, 300 being armor HP. For those of you unfamiliar, armor HP, as stated by Jeff Kaplan in previous interviews, supposed to reduce damage by 50%. I think they kind of went back on that pretty quickly, as that's no longer the case. That would be a little broken at this point, I'd feel. As it stands currently, armor HP, it's a flat 5 damage reduction regardless of total damage of the shot. So single shot, whether it does 120 damage, it'll be reduced down to 115, or if it does a 12 damage shot, it'll be reduced down to 7. So kind of follow me there. Makes it especially effective against the low damage, high volume attacks like Tracer's pulse pistols, for example. So I personally feel armor HP is far superior to shield HP. When it comes to a tank, especially given the differences between the two and the ability for armor HP to be healed by healing abilities. Shield HP, it cannot be modified by your Lucio, your Mercy. You have to go out of combat, be out of combat for a certain amount of time. I think it's 2 or 3 seconds, and you have to let it regenerate on itself. So it's much more when you have a heavy shield HP type of character, it's plays more to a bob and weave kind of play style than it does a frontal damage tanking kind of guy like Reinhardt. The main thing that makes Reinhardt so good, that 2000 conal shield on no cooldown that you can just put up and down, it's far better than anything other tank can offer at the moment. I don't think it's even close. At least the second best, if not the best tank ultimate in the game with Earth Shatter. It's a conal knockdown, which it doesn't seem like it. I think it's a 2 or 3 second knockdown. It doesn't seem like a lot of time, but in competitive Overwatch, that is an eternity.
When things are standing still, it's amazing how quickly you can kill them in this game.
Oh yeah. It just opens up so many doors of what you can do. Decent mobility with its initiation. He's got his charge. He's got his shield piercing 100 damage range attack. That kind of like that light blast that he throws. That does go through shields. Not too many abilities go through shields, so it's a pretty effective range attack. He's got his 300 damage pin ability. I mean, it's a one shot to just about every hero in the game that's not a tank if you can direct hit on it. And his kit just offers so many different useful abilities, brings so much versatility that, in my opinion at least, he's the pretty clear number 1 tank at the moment.
I think it's safe to say it's hard to argue that, whether we're talking from just simply matchmaking or if we're talking on a competitive level, he is that essence of a tank, right? He's holding the shield in one hand, he's got the big melee weapon in the other hand. It's obvious that that's what the creators of Overwatch were definitely going for with this character, so that's not a surprise to me. What I will say was a little bit of a surprise to me as time adapted on was how often he was seen on defense, especially because on offense, it makes sense. You're pushing as a team, and you need to get behind that big wall to then eventually push in and break through to set objective, or for that matter, sitting on the payload and just sitting there with the shield up. Pretty strong tactic as well. But yeah, how many people use it on defense? I mean, it's pretty much a core as well. You could say is what I kind of found interesting. But it's almost like you have to, because you have to combat their Reinhardt with your own, right? So
exactly.
When that's happening, I mean, that just kind of gives a value right there that he is probably the strongest out there as far as tank option goes. So, yeah. Yeah,
especially in like the short areas to where you allow your team so much mobility by just putting a giant shield in front of them and letting them operate behind it that it's unmatched at the moment. No one really has anything that can just go up and down at ease, pretty much no cooldown as such. So it's just unbeatable in my opinion.
Yeah, I was actually. It took me a while to actually play Reinhardt. He was one of the he was one of the last characters I ended up playing. He wasn't really appealing to me, to be frank, but because I figured he was going to be this really slow guy, and being melee was not really that great for me. But when you play him though, that pin, man, just sitting there trying to pin people 24/7, even if you whiff, it's still hilarious, and it's so good though when you do hit it.
Yeah. Pretty satisfying to hit a direct hit. You even get to see the hero in front of you as you're just like plowing them into a wall.
Yeah.
Effective and incredibly pleasing as well.
Yeah.
Number 2. Why don't you lead us off with number 2? In your opinion.
Number 2. So when you're sitting here saying number 1 has to be Reinhardt, I mean, I will say a little bit of me kind of reacted with, well, maybe you could argue perhaps Winston even, Zarya perhaps. I mean, those I would have to say are kind of number 2 for me if I had to give like a next tier list. Personally, Zarya, I feel now Zarya's interesting because she's got a bit of a support to her, right, where she shields others, and at the same time she's got some offensive capabilities with. The more damage the shield absorbs, the more damage she does herself. So it brings that offensive satisfaction in terms of just because she's a tank that can ultimately take a lot of damage and also help others prevent damage, she can then put out plenty of damage herself, with ease almost to an extent. And good Zarya players are actually really fun to watch in my opinion, especially keeping the charges up, just doing that maximum damage. So for me, probably Zarya.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. It's weird because I don't know how much you played her. I played her quite a bit, especially when I was learning. I felt she was real easy to pick up, and she's inherently pretty tanky. The 200 health and the 200 shields. It's a good bit of health. It's not as much as Reinhardt by any means, but I don't feel she really operates as kind of like that. She's not supposed to operate as that main tank that's really up front, absorbing all the damage and pushing points, pushing the map back and forth. Like a Reinhardt with his shield. She's much more of kind of like a support tank in a way, a number 2 tank, off tank for you WoW players out there. So just to cover her 2 barrier abilities real quick. So barriers are completely different from HP or shields. Barriers do not increase your total health pool, shield pool, or armor HP pool. So they can't. You don't see them reflected in any of the numbers. They operate much like for once again WoW players out there, power word shields. Kind of the same thing. There are set durations, set total absorb amount, can't be altered in any way. Like I said, we call her a tank, but it doesn't feel like a tank. She's a tank in the sense that she has a higher HP pool, 400, a good bit higher than all the DPS classes that are a standard 2, some are 150 for the lower ones, but it's just her playstyle is so much more tailored towards that. Kind of like I mentioned, that bob and weave. Get out, take the 200 damage, and then get out and let that 200 damage heal up with her shield HP, and then go back into the fight. Throw more projected barriers out onto your main tank, typically the Reinhardt, and really follow in after that and go and have that high damage burst that you can follow up with the Reinhardt with. Really nice. Numbers are still a little unclear from the research I've done, but both barriers, I believe, increase damage by roughly 50% each. So if you have a maxed out personal barrier and a maxed out ally barrier, you can effectively double your damage if they're destroyed by the enemy team, which slowly degrades over time. But it's just the thing that makes her such one of the top picks in the competitive meta at the moment to me, that ultimate, the Graviton Surge, it's just the best crowd control ability in the game. Yeah. It's completely unmatched, especially for point taking. If you happen to a perfect Reinhardt follow up, a knockdown, throw it in, and it allows you to really couple it up with all your DPS's ultimates, Pharah's Barrage, the High Noon from McCree, Death Blossom from Reaper. There's just so much you can do, and those mass wipeouts are what you're looking for to tank, either to push forward with the payload or to take a map objective. So, to me, that's kind of why I'm viewing her as probably the number 2 tank in the competitive meta.
Yeah, for me personally, I don't think there's anything else that's more that I got more satisfaction from in Ultimate. The Graviton Surge, as you mentioned, it's when it all comes together. As I have the phrase, the wombo combo, that I use a lot. It's essentially where this is the setup where, we got a character in Han, Tempest. He has the black hole ability where, pulls everyone in. That's what this is, really, as you're getting at. And it really is no better feeling. Now, I will say you have to make sure your teammates are ready for it, of course. But obviously, if we're talking a competitive atmosphere where communication is going to be on point, you'd figure that is going to definitely be on point. Especially mentioned with Farah, something like that, being able to just ride on top of them with a rocket barrage. So, yeah. But it is interesting, right? How she is classified as a tank, as you're getting at, because of her stats. But honestly, if this hero was in support, it wouldn't have thrown me off, really.
Exactly.
I could have believed it. So it's interesting how they came up with the tank in the end for her, but.
Yeah, kind of an interesting blend of. I think the one thing that Overwatch does really well, they do really well with the hybrids. Like we'll talk about it a little bit later. The support hybrids, we have tank hybrids. They do such a great job of not making it to the point to where it's a very clear pick over the true role players, the true tanks, the true supports, but it does a real nice blend to where it's not completely ineffective and it's playable. It doesn't make it so it's kind of like it's like a lesser version of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So moving on, number 3 for me, kind of right up there. I think it's not a far off number 3 for me. D.Va, the mech robot SC2 player, I believe is her backstory, something like that.
I think so, yeah. Or maybe even Brood War, but yeah, some Korean StarCraft player.
Yeah. Something along that sort. So 500 health pool, 400 of it being armor HP, 100 being normal HP. That's huge. Armor HP, I'd say, in my opinion, probably the best tank HP in the game. Very mobile. Highest DPS auto attacks of all the tank in the game, outside of a direct shot from, I believe, Roadhog's short-range scrap gun, if he's able to pull off that chain combo. Mm-hmm. She has a conal shield that absorbs all damage. It does really well. It's got a 3-second duration, 6-second cooldown though, so it's more of a kind of hit and miss. You don't really completely rely on it to push forward. It's more of an entrance in for your team. Not nearly as effective as Reinhardt's shield, but I feel her shield fares pretty well against high damage AoE abilities. Like Farah's barrage, really good. Her ultimate can be really, really good when you're trying to take points, because against like competitive Overwatch players, they're going to understand what they're doing. So it's probably not going to be a whole lot of kills you pull off when you eject the robots and kind of throw it into them. But it's more of a way to where you can you press a point and you force them to move as you're moving in.
What I found interesting with D.Va is, there's first off, as we mentioned with whatever her name is, Zarya, how she has kind of that support element to her, definitely. D.Va's more of the offensive. Like, again, if this character was under, honestly, offense, it wouldn't have really surprised me. She just happens to be able to tank and absorb a lot of damage, and of course that Matrix kind of gives her that element too. But what I've found entertaining with D.Va, she's kind of at least from what I've seen, I don't know if that really was a thing, but a lot of the scrims that I happen to watch, and even some of the matches, you would see teams go full D.Va at the end, at least. If they're pushing to a point, to make sure they get it at the very end, everyone just goes D.Va, and they just try to take the point. I mean, she's that hero for that. And right now, with the lack of restrictions as far as how many of a specific class you can have, like Team Fortress had, I mean, you're allowed to do that, of course. So that's also kind of another subject in itself. But that's that tactic because of her mobility, because of how much she can absorb, and then getting in there and doing some decent damage, and then try to get that final point. It's kind of an interesting tactic that we'll see people go to. Yeah,
she feels like a real bully, doesn't she? Like when you're on that final point at King's Row, and the attacking team's trying to push the payload to that final point, you can go six D.Vas and just sit on top of it, and it's so hard to bring 6 D.Vas down because, I mean, just as much as you can do that 500 HP that you got to kill her, she happens to get a kill with just like her ultimate she throws out, she's right back in the mech suit. So it's like all that work for nothing.
Yeah, and the second life that she has essentially too, that's pretty ridiculous in a good player's hands. Like, it's almost like they feel unkillable.
Yeah, because I mean, with her mobility coupled with that, it's not like she's a static tank that's like, okay, well, we just got to really put damage into her and we'll be able to deal with her. She can very easily just fly off. and just come right back into the fight with a full mech suit, and it's kind of like you made zero progress on her.
Mm-hmm.
No reload time, really good on that too. Really keeps her in the middle of the fight, not having to play that. But yeah, in the meta, the way I've viewed her as the pro teams have used her, more of a niche pick. But I think she's kind of like that one. If I had to pick a backup to Reinhardt in a true tank role, I'd say she's probably the main fill-in.
Well, I think the best way actually to kind of put it is she's great for maps that do have the high-rise areas. The areas where you do want to take advantage of going up. Obviously, with their jetpack, that's key for that. Reinhardt, of course, he really can't do that whatsoever. And then the other tanks, they may somewhat struggle, other than perhaps Winston. But so, speaking of Winston,
yeah. Speaking of Winston, I think me and you are going to disagree a little bit on him because I like Winston. He's one of the, he's one of the first heroes introduced to Overwatch, kind of like the first animations, and everyone kind of like, it's a really cool concept, the Professor Gorilla. His playstyle is very fun, kind of like that really deep diving tank that could jump in and just get in people's faces, like especially like a Widowmaker, those annoying type range classes. Just feels like a real bully. But however, in competitive play, from what I've seen of him, he seems to probably be the least effective of all the tanks. So, high HP definitely, which is okay. I mean, 500 HP. 500 hit point pool, 400 being normal HP, 100 being armor HP. So of the tanks, probably on the low end of that side. Outside of Roadhog, the standard attack, the Tesla cannon. It seems like it does a lot of DPS. It's really not.
Yeah.
Right around 60 to 65 damage per second. It's not something you can punish people really quickly with. It's more of kind of like a general annoyance. What I say.
Mm-hmm.
His kit. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I see what you're saying. I mean, it's kind of like it's kind of a lot of average in a sense as far as what he ultimately can do. He's kind of just that mediocre. He's an okay choice, but you're probably not going to choose him in most cases. I mean, there are some cool things that he can do. I mean, his bigger advantages is no doubt the mobility. The leap is huge. And then on top of that, the shield that he puts down. I mean, especially on top of a payload, going back to that idea, if you happen to be trying to get that final push or whatever, that can help, absorb some good damage there. So, but I mean, yeah, I'm with you in the sense that you're not going to pick this up as your 1 or 2, maybe, but I don't know. The mobility, the ultimate is funky to me. The idea that it knocks back constantly is almost, I find, to be more annoying as a player than helpful at times. I don't know about you, but
doesn't it seem counterintuitive too?
Yeah.
Because you would kind of think like, okay, well, you go, it's basically like you go ultimate form, and you're supposed to be kind of like this unstoppable force, and instead of doing a lot of damage in a brief period of time, it's just kind of like you knock them around. You annoy them even more. So while the Tesla cannon was kind of more of a slight annoyance, maybe you get a little more annoying in the fact that it's kind of a slight CC effect, but it's really not all that much damage. It doesn't feel like a true ultimate, outside of the big heal.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Well, so that's the thing. Like when I was ready to use the ultimate, I found myself, okay, I want to use the ultimate if anything, so I could just be kind of that big tank that they can't kill. But as far as the knockback, unless they're near some kind of edge on whatever map, then knocking them off is a pretty good feeling. But
that is pretty fun. Yeah, but like you go ultimate form, you can't use your shield. It's kind of like you cease being the tank, and you more become like just this. I don't know. It's almost kind of like you get in their face, and you would assume like it's okay. Well, you're going to do a lot of damage, and you're going to really like kick it up a notch in terms of just pressuring the team, and it doesn't really feel like that. It just kind of feels like a big
Yeah, where Winston actually is that niche pick, especially is against something like the Widowmakers, like those snipers that are in those high areas that he can get to better than anyone else, at least the tank goes.
Yeah, and kind of like we discussed earlier with Diva, kind of like in certain points, I think there's a great idea to go like 6 Winstons, even like on a payload map. I mean, the 1,000 damage shield, it's it's a really good shield, the 360, 13-second cooldown though, and I think that the trouble I have with it being a staple tank is just the shield's stationary, so it's got those niche situations, but it's not something like you rely
unless you
on.
put it on a payload.
Unless you put it on a payload, yes, and it will move, Yeah. but it's kind of like it, on that cooldown, and the duration to it. I don't know. It kind of feels much more, a whole lot less reliable. I should go with that.
Yeah, I think there's going to be those players that definitely. It's God. I want to say like when the competitive scene was really starting to first. I mean, it's obviously so very early on.
Yeah.
But I want to say Winston was actually valued as one of the better tanks, but maybe that did kind of transition. I mean, I think that was even before Diva was out. To be fair, so perhaps that's something to do with that. But I will say that you were mentioning the 6 Winston strat. I don't know if you got the chance to try it. We actually we did a 5 Winston and Lucio. Oh my God. It's unkillable. You can't touch them. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. There's actually, it happened in a competitive scenario too. I think it was Kings Row. One of the attacking teams I think it was a Blizzard team actually, went 5 Winstons and a Lucio, and they tried to storm the first point. When the first time they did it, caught the team off guard and just completely wiped and worked so well. But I think the second time around, the other team was expecting it, and when they did, they kind of just played much more defensive. Really got in. I think they got into the shields, which it does not actually absorb in the shield. It kind of works as like a wall. So if you shoot from the outside in, it absorbs. But if you're in the inside against the Winston, it's effectively 0.
The best counter is a 6 Reinhardt strat.
6 Reinhardt strats.
Exactly. I kid you not. That's a team did that against us when we did ours, and they wrecked us. So.
It's hard to beat Reinhardt right now. He's just good. So good. Okay,
and then there's this guy.
Yeah. Where would you have, before we move on, Winston?
Okay.
4 or 5?
4 as far as this ranking?
Uh-huh.
God, man, part of me wants to say 3 even, but really? I see Diva, though. No, it's hard to put it over that, so I would say 4. Say 4.
Okay. I personally would put him 5, but I think I might be in the minority there. I think a lot of people see a whole lot of value in him still, so I guess we will disagree on that point. But this one, personally, this is the guy that I really see so much potential for. Kind of like we've been discussing, really, like, I wouldn't call him a traditional tank, much like we've been discussing with Zarya and such, but Roadhog, very, very fun to play. In a competitive sense, I'm a little unsure of where to really rate him, because he seems incredibly effective for all the MOBA players out there. Pudge, was it Stitches? And Stitches is Heroes of New Earth.
It's Devour and Han.
Devour,
yeah,
that's what
that same, yeah.
Heroes of the Storm is Stitches, excuse me.
How dare you?
How dare I used to play a lot of Han too. I can't believe I didn't remember that.
There's so many nowadays,
yeah. It's even more. So Roadhog, as it's saying, it comes with the highest health pool in the game, 600 HP, strictly normal health, no armor HP, no shield HP. Standard attack. So it's one of the highest damage attacks in the game, max of 225 damage if all of his pellets hit. But it requires your opponent to basically be directly in front of you, and this is kind of hard to do unless you land that chain hook. Medium range, alternative fire, which it can be okay to kind of finish people off, but utilizing it's really not all that effective as kind of like a standard attack. It only does 50 damage. Not one you use too often. The best part of his kit, of course, is chain hook. That's the reason you pick him. Not only does it drag the opponent closer to your enemy team, it essentially allows you to land a damage combo that's currently unmatched right now. If done properly, you can combo your hook into a single close range standard attack, a melee attack, or excuse me, a left click, and then follow it up with a melee attack. You can get a damage total of 305 damage out of that one combo, and you can hit it real quick too. So it basically one-shots just about everybody in the game outside of tanks. So, kind of like I mentioned earlier, he doesn't feel like a true tank. He kind of has to play that bob and weave style, but he doesn't have any shields. He's more of kind of like that combo, that high DPS and situational guide, to where if you have someone who's really good with it, could be a good counter to Pharah, should I add? I didn't really think about that one.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of up in the air for me. What do you think about him?
Well, kind of like that kind of Pharah. He's that counter in a sense to those mid-range kind of that those want to keep that gap like a Pharah. like a Junkrat, you could even say, where he wants to, where that's where that hook comes into play, where they want to keep that distance. Well, then he hooks you, brings you in, and then does this combo, and you have to take a little bit to then get away or whatever. But he's number 5 for me. I mean, no doubt. And I say that because it's a mix of. He's all single target right now. Overwatch, it is a lot of this group up, team battles, the defense attack. Now with this new game mode, whatever it may be, if it is more along the lines of some singling out opportunities like the Arathi Basin style, even like a capture the flag, I definitely think that'll open up the door for this hero to be a lot more effective because of that idea that he will single that target, whether it's the guy with the flag or whether it's the support, Mercy or whatever. So that's kind of my thing with this guy. But right now, I don't think there's a reason to pick him up over the others. Honestly, his whole hog ability, I don't get it. The knockback, we were talking about that with Winston. The knockback on the whole hog ability seems like it completely ruins most of what you figure. When I first went to use it, I'm like, oh sweet, I got to use the ultimate now because, and I've seen people use it, with the gun or whatever, and I'm thinking I'm gonna wreck these guys, and all of a sudden I start using it, and it pushes this guy like way back out of range, and I can't even shoot him anymore. I'm like, what was the point of that?
Yeah, it operates just like your standard left click attack, in the way it shoots pellets. So you're not able to maximize the damage. And you want it short range because the closer they are to you, the more damage you're going to do to them. And by pushing them back, it's like, yeah, it kind of messes with them and it annoys them, but you're essentially doing less and less damage unless you're walking towards them. And even then, it's still static. It's like, push back, walk forward, push back, walk forward.
I don't feel like ultimate should be a very neat, like you have to be in very enclosed areas, with up against a wall or whatever, then yeah, that kind of makes sense. But yeah, the fact that his ultimate really relies on that is kind of silly to me.
Yeah. Which kind of makes me sad because it's probably the least effective, one of the least effective ults in the game, you would say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I think it might be the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll go through perhaps, but
probably of all classes, I would say too. So, yeah. I'm a fan. I love his kit. I love the combo. It's so fun to land on people. But yeah, as of right now, I'm with you. His playstyle really doesn't feel like a tank, and it kind of doesn't. It feels at best a niche pick in the competitive meta.
I can't see with the game modes right now a reason to pick up this hero. I really just don't see a reason. So,
oops,
I just dropped my ring.
Oh gosh.
And now it's back on my finger.
All right. Now we're all through all that. How about we move on to the support classes? How about you open up on this one? What would you say is your number one support right now?
Well, I want to preface this with, honestly, support is my role. Like this is what, no matter the game, the MOBA scene back into Fortran, I love playing support. So I've actually had a good amount of play time. By far the most amount of play time on all 4 of these heroes, actually. So
perfect.
This is where I'm an expert.
Yeah.
Let's let it shine, all right? So as far as a tier list goes for support, it's tough. Because they individually feel very niche roles to an extent. Like, if we're looking at offense, okay, overall, I think Mercy has to be...
Okay.
Overall, has to be Mercy because she is the pure 100%. That is what she brings to the table. Support, like her attack is pretty much non-existent. She's all about amping others' damage as well. You tag along with a Pharah, a Junkrat, whatever. You're gonna do work right there. So we'll start with that. So if I had to make a list, I would put Mercy up there, just as an overall picture. If we're talking attack defend, no matter what.
Yeah, and it's kind of even through it with a set of nerfs, too.
Yeah.
The damage amp nerf, 50 to 30%.
Did that get nerfed like that? Yeah.
Sure did, yeah. And actually, it's weird in a way of, talking to one of my friends, it didn't necessarily nerf her, as it much did it nerfed classes that kind of offered something when coupled with the Mercy before, like the Widowmaker and Hanzo. When you used to have the 50% damage or amp, you used to be able to one-shot people with a standard 200 HP pool. You can't do that anymore with the 30% nerf. It effectively moves Widow's shot up, I think it's like 180, 190, but, I mean, it requires 2 shots anyway. So,
okay.
in a competitive meta to where you want to have one or two supports, that lethal damage is of utmost importance.
I know they nerfed her resurrection initially, but then they changed that back.
Changed it back, yeah. What do you think about that? Do you think it kind of bordering on way too good right now?
Well, there's no doubt that's like her kit, I guess you can call it, is definitely one of the strongest in the game. The amping the other damage, the mass heal that she brings, and then being able to say you're dead. Wait, no, you're not. It is really strong. If anything, making it like a charge system of sorts, or where you can only do one at a time, perhaps. But I think that's kind of the biggest issue right now, is that she literally, not everyone ideally, but even if it's like 2 or 3 people around her, all of a sudden they're back up, ready to go back in that fight. I mean, that's a really, really strong ability. Yeah. So I think that might be a way to look at it, maybe some kind of charge system, but I don't know. I haven't really thought about it too much.
What do you think of this idea? I was kind of throwing out some ideas. What if you made her ultimate as it is a cast time, or as of right now, it's an instant. What if you made it a cast time to where instead of making it so you could fail the ultimate, what if you initially it's going to res and then that 2-second period that relies on the amount of HP you're going to be able to provide the team as they get up. So. And if it goes to the full 2 seconds, 100%, 1 second, 50%, and kind of sliding scale relative to that. So you can't really just like jump out in enemy fire, res everybody, and it really doesn't matter if you die because you served your purpose.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I don't know if that would really nerf her in the end, because I feel like a lot of the time she is going to be casting Resurrection. It's going to be usually in a covered area for the most part. But I guess when you're in the middle of combat at the same time, yes, that could open up the doors for something like that.
Yeah.
To be realistic. So that is an interesting idea. I actually like that.
Cool. Thank you.
Fortunately, I don't design the game, so.
No, neither do I. So, as good as all that is, we got our damage amp. We got the ultimate is probably the main reason to bring her. But you got to remember that single target heal, best in the game, right? I think in terms of healings per second.
Maybe Lucio's amped up heal. It's pretty strong.
Okay, Lucio, I think, is amped. I think it's 40.
Okay.
40 health per second. I think I don't have it on hand. Sorry, guys. I think it's, if I had to remember off the top of my head, I think it's around 60. 60 single target heal per second, which I think serves a purpose in and of itself because it couples so well with that, that support tank, that Mercy Reinhardt type of situation. It does really well. Whereas Lucio, it's kind of like you can do well amped, but it's more of kind of like everyone has to be taking damage and everyone has to be close to you for it to be fully effective.
Oh yeah.
You don't
That's
have,
fair.
And there's just so much about her. Like her jump, I think her jump is.
It's strong, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's called Guardian Angel. It allows you like so much mobility. As shocking as that sounds, just to be able to jump from like teammate to teammate, jump behind shields really quick. It's just hard to beat her right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's like you think of Team Fortress 2. I don't know how much space you have with that, but the medic in Team Fortress 2, he didn't have that kind of mobility. It's essentially that kind of medic to an extent. Obviously, it's different enough to be definitely different, but it's that idea that you're able to also then fly with said allies and use it to get away, or go help somebody in another spot and jump between 2 targets. I just don't see a legit argument that could be made though where she's not top tier as far as overall. Again, if we're talking about a very specific role, then I think you could argue, a couple of these other ones, but overall it has to be Mercy.
Yeah. So I'm assuming it's probably a pretty clear number 2 in most people's eyes, but maybe not. So I'll just I'll start out with Lucio in this one. He is pretty close to number 1, but I'd say number 2 still behind Mercy with, like you said, situational points to where you would prefer Lucio over him. So starting with the positives, 200 normal HP, pretty standard for support class. Incredibly mobile with his speed aura and his wall ride passive. I think a lot of people really underestimate just how good it could be, and I've seen some videos out there that have really highlighted just how mobile you really can be. The way it works, kind of like you're able to jump on one wall and ride on it and you can't jump back on the same wall. But if you just effectively use it in corners, you could essentially rise up any corner you would like, just kind of going back and forth. It's really underutilized. A speed boost, great for entering team fights. I tried to find the percentage boost. Was not able to do that, but kind of from what it felt like when it's amped 50 to 60% movement speed bonus. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I would say around that. Yeah, I was going to say, if anything, it just feels really fast and really good.
Yeah. Damage output, fairly decent, actually. Standard range attack, it does... it's a 4-shot standard attack, 20 damage each shot. Does not suffer from damage fall-off, which will, when we get to DPS classes in a maybe future episode, we'll discuss that. But, it's a flat 20 damage per shot, so if all 4 hit, 80 damage. If you catch people in close spaces, it's kind of sneaky how much damage you really can do with the 4-shot burst, and then you're able to actually animation cancel his right click knockback with a melee, and it does about 75 damage, and then couple that with another, left click, a standard shot, you can get it up over 200 damage. You can kill just about anybody pretty quickly. I'd say his ultimate is arguably more impactful on a much more reliable basis than Mercy's, as your team can really group up beforehand, guaranteeing that full effectiveness, that full 500 shield HP to everyone on your team. Now, it doesn't last quite as long as many people would expect, only about 5 to 6 seconds, and it degrades at roughly 100 shield HP per second. So great for kind of like entering in. Doesn't provide a long-term shield though, but still really good and probably the most easily to be fully effective.
Entering in, I mean, that's interesting. Obviously, that's a great way to use it, but honestly, I think you could argue it's almost more effective to use it in spots of where if somebody happens to be getting really low and you're in a big chaotic fight, then using it right there, and that'll really, because especially if they're looking to use big cooldowns to then burst that whatever set hero down or a couple others, then that'll throw them off. If you use it going in, then yes, it can be effective, but that could give them time to then react to it even, so.
Very true, very true. I guess I was kind of thinking of it more of someone may be dying, someone may be dead, and that shield will not effectively land on them, nor may they be in the range of you to land it on them.
Yeah.
But I guess that's a great idea though. But the reason I feel Lucio can't be that lone support, that one single target guy, is the heals per second I just don't think are really on par with Mercy. Given the nature of Lucio's heal being an aura, his single target really suffers. So the max damage you can heal a single target is 40 health per second. That's with the amp. Only lasts for 3 seconds. And the standard heal is 12.5 health per player per second, which is not that great. Theoretically, if everyone's taking damage around you, it's great because it's a full effectiveness at a possible 60 health per second. But those situations are few and far between. So yeah, I think it's niche, and I think he works as a kind of like a great secondary support. But as a lone single support, I don't know, it just doesn't feel as good to me.
From my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like in this very, very fresh meta/competitive scene, dual support is pretty much the go-to strategy. It always revolves basically a Mercy and then one of the others, most likely a Lucio in a lot of cases. So it seems like you got Mercy. She is the 100% pure support, and then the other three are kind of hybrids to an extent. Symmetra maybe not as much, but at the same time, yeah, she has potential to actually do decent damage. We'll get into that in a second. But yeah, Lucio, if you're talking just purely offense, I think there's an argument to be made that he is actually the best support.
Yeah.
Because of the aura, but...
Yeah, I can see that. Especially the movement aura. Really nothing that matches it in the game.
Yeah.
I think I may underestimate that in a sense, too. But I'm assuming he is your number 2 as well?
Oh, yeah. Again, if we're talking overall, yeah. I think a Mercy-Lucio combination in most cases is going to be really strong. So.
Okay. All right. So how about your number 3? Who would be your number 3?
See, this is where it is tough because there's only 2 more left, obviously. So who's 3? Who's 4? It's really niche. Like it's on offense. I mean, it's Symmetra, the ability of the teleport. It's arguably one of the strongest abilities in the game. Or on defense, excuse me. I don't know why I said offense. On defense, it's one of the strongest abilities in the game to be able to respond, obviously, to said offense, who's taking an A point or whatever. being able to then resurrect and then go right to that rather than have to walk all the way back. It's insane how much that can change and really give you value in a game. The shield on top of that is very, very strong. Just a straight up, it's 50, I want to say.
Yes, 50 armor, or 50 shield HP.
Yeah, 50 shield HP. So as we mentioned before, not only is that damage that will be absorbed by that, but then also it has a chance to regen if you can get out of combat there. So, God, so defense, I think it's the best, but honestly, offense, I would have to go with Zenyatta. So as far as overall, man, that is tough. If you're putting me on the spot right here, I'd have to say overall, who's the better number 3? I would say Zenyatta. Yeah. I would
agree. And I'm going to disagree with you on the fact that I don't think it's really close. I do not like Symmetro one bit. It's because her kit seems so cool, right? It's kind of like the set up a teleporter. You kind of have an inherent ability to really protect it with the turrets to keep people out of a room. That is such, being able to provide that 50 shield HP to everybody on the team. And it kind of seems like it's a lot of... And I think her single target damage can be one of the highest in terms of supports in the game.
The charge up, yeah.
If the charge up, I think, after it hits 2 seconds, that's 120 DPS. It could take down a whole lot of DPS classes quick. It almost kind of sounds like, to me, everything seems great in theory, but in practice, I was never able to get the full effectiveness out of her that I did the other ones. The Zenyatas, the Lucios, the Mercies. No active healing ability, I think, is pretty big. The other 3 have one. She does not. I know it's it's a nice buff to have, but kind of trying to go around the map and provide that 50 shield HP, kind of with how competitive Overwatch works, and is a lot of dying and respawning. It's a lot of moving back and forth, and it's hard to kind of really keep it up on everybody. Her left click is kind of like it's a much better version of Winston's Tesla cannon. Mm-hmm. Like, it's that, that ramping DPS, but trying to fully get it on the person to stick for 2 seconds without dying yourself, it seemed really difficult. Because, she's support. She only has 200 HP. Her standard DPS is not going to be anywhere near that of a lot of the flanking DPS classes, Tracer, Reaper, or the standard, like the McCree, the Pharah. You're just going to get blown up before you can reach that point. I don't know. It's in the teleporter. You're right. The maximum effectiveness of the teleporter, if you can keep it up, is, I'd say, the best ultimate theoretically in the game in terms of effectiveness. If you can hold it on defense and really hold the other team at a single point, but just trying to keep it up, man, it's weak. And hiding it from the other team too, it can be pretty tough sometimes.
There's nothing more frustrating as a Symmetra, and in any case, really any hero, than seeing your teleporter being destroyed, especially like right after you just put it up, or like a Tracer like spots it as you're putting it up, and you're just like, well, crap.
Yeah, exactly. Go
ahead.
It just doesn't take much to kill it, is what I wanted to add.
Yeah, and a competitive atmosphere, again, if we're talking at the top tier competitive, getting those killed is probably going to be fairly easy in most cases. I will say, going back to her left click, though, she is really good against Tracer for that, how it locks onto her if you can't get that in. Honestly, it is a little difficult, but once you get it locked on, you'll kill her pretty quickly. So she's one of the best anti-Tracers in the game, which I like. But the Sentry Turrets, didn't those get a buff as well, I want to say? They actually... they went through some changes... Hold on, let's play. They either got a buff or a nerf. I honestly can't remember. I want to say they got a buff to where how quickly the cooldown resets. I think because it's a 10-second cooldown right now, and I think it even used to be a little bit longer if I'm not mistaken. But
you're right. Okay, so Sentry Turret cooldown in one of the latest patches, cooldown decreased to 10 seconds, down from 20.
So that right there, 20 to 10. Gee, I didn't even realize it was that much.
Yeah, with a max of 6. You can put up 6 over the map.
So ideally, and I think that is one of the misconceptions of it so much. I know you even said it where you don't have to, but you want to use them to protect your portal.
Yeah.
Honestly, not necessarily. You should the way I would play is ideally putting in a spot that may not necessarily be spotted. I mean, obviously, there's not really going to be absolute area for that. But put in a spot, maybe pull 1 or 2 sentry turrets, but then use the rest of the sentry turrets a little more offensively even. You can place it even mid-combat as they're coming up, say on the wall, and it'll actually start to do some decent damage for you. So I think Symmetras make it focused in this idea that you have to place them and then you just kind of forget about them. You can actually use them mid-fight, to be fair. But
very true.
Yeah.
25 damage per second.
Yeah.
Per turret, so. Yeah, kind of come around the corner and see 2 sentry turrets, split them apart, and, having to sit there doing 50 DPS, trying to come around the corner, not trying to kill those while also being preoccupied with your opponent standing in front of you. I'm certainly probably firing at you as well. I didn't even think about that. It's a good point.
But yeah, no, I see at the same time, the not having a heal and having to constantly refresh those shields as people resurrect can be a little bit of a pain. And then keeping a teleporter up, especially at a high tier game, that can be pretty difficult. So,
kind of like that flow of the game too. It's a constant. You're not really staying at one point on the map. It's if it's payload, you're moving down hallways, you're moving down different rooms, point captures. I guess point capture is a little bit different, especially on the defensive side. Great for capturing single points and holding on to them, but I'd say much more niche.
Yeah. Honestly, she does have a little bit of offensive use to her. People may overlook that too, I think, that just just defense because, getting back there and the respawn being so long. But if you put it could actually really help you just secure points that much quicker at the same time if you put it on offense.
Very true. Very true.
Again, I'm talking more TMM, though, not necessarily competitive, but
yeah,
it's a fun little tactic.
All right, so let's move on to the last support here. Another one of my favorites. I love the design of Zenyatta. I feel Blizzard did a real fantastic job capturing the concept of the true hybrid support. He's not. He doesn't feel ineffective at either one. He doesn't feel like a lesser version of a support and a DPS class. He feels just kind of like it's a nice blend of the two. He's got the ability to passively heal with the Orb of Harmony and also be able to deal some nice damage as well. So, speaking of that damage, standard left click does 45 damage at a rate of 3 per second. So, if you can maximize all your hits, 135 damage per second. He's got the burst shot. If you charge it a full 2.5 seconds and you hit it on someone, saying coming around a corner, 175 damage. That's nothing to mess nothing to mess with. Excuse me. Huge damage for a normal DPS class, let alone a DPS hybrid. Ultimate's pretty good. He becomes immune to damage, provides a healing ore to his teammates at the rate of, I think it's 100 health per second for 6 seconds. Pretty good. Not as reliable as Lucio's or Mercy's, but not bad. Also a nice kind of way to save yourself as well. One of the flanking DPS classes happens to get behind you, gets on top of you, just pop your ultimate and kind of wait for your teammates to come around and kill them off, and you'll go back to what you were doing. The Discord Orb, it's so good. It's a debuff he places on enemies. It's not a skill shot, so no missile speed or anything to worry about that. You hit the button when you're targeting on them, and it goes on them, as long as they're not behind a shield. The 50% damage amp. But I think the underrated aspect to me, personally, it's the tracking ability on it. If you land it on a flanking DPS that's trying to kind of outmaneuver the team and use the side pathways, if they aren't able to get it off themselves, you might as well just kind of give up at that point because you're going to be caught. No one's really going to let you get behind him at that point if your Zenyatta's communicating, that is, and which is we could assume on a competitive team. And even with Pharah, too, kind of like that. Pharah operates on that different axis, more on that Z axis, away from the team, and can really kind of surprise you from up above. Just placing it on her, that could be really nice, and just kind of keeping track of where she goes throughout the air.
This Zenyatta, one of the Mercy, very strong hero. We've already been over that. One of the strongest in the game. She's top tier. Yes, one of the best advantages that a Zenyatta has over Mercy is the idea that he doesn't need to stay with said target to be beneficial with the heal. And I think that Orb of Transcendence is very, very powerful. And I think that's where you could see him over Lucio in some cases, tagged up with that Mercy. Whether you want a little bit more offensive capability, because no doubt Zenyatta has much more kill potential than a Lucio, I think it's safe to say. And then on top of that, if you have that, say, a Tracer, I know a Reaper for that matter, which a lot of teams probably would, put that on him as he's going to a Genji. Fantastic example, actually. You put that Orbit Transcendence on him, and it's just a huge buff. Like if you get a Genji with that going up against one Orbit Harmony, excuse me.
Discord is the debuff one. Or Harmony is the positive, Discord's the negative.
Yeah, so no, I'm talking about the Harmony. You put on your own Genji, and then he happens to be in a 1v1 versus another Genji. You know, he's going to win that every time, right? Because the Orb of Harmony it's that strong. So, I think there is definitely good value, and that's where you definitely really do have to put him number 3. And now that I'm really talking this out here, but I love if you weren't going to bring it up, I was going to. So I'm glad you did. Orb of Discord. The biggest thing is the tracking, I think. The amp damage is a nice addition, and yes, that's a very powerful tool of it, but the tracking of it is really, really effective, and I think that's one of the more overlooked parts of it, definitely, too. And then Transcendence, real quickly, you mentioned the heal. I found myself using it more for the heal, to be honest, rather than saving myself in a lot of ways, so that was nice of it, too, but... Yeah, I loved playing this class as a support if I felt like being able to kill people, basically. Yeah,
exactly. He's kind of like that. He's the support for people who don't want to play support. You know, he offers a little bit of both to where your main play style kind of like he's got an HP pool. I think it's 100 shield HP, 50 standard HP. He's got really that style with the shield HP to where you can kind of bob and weave and keep his health pool up without a whole lot of maintenance from your healers. Offer high damage, and then still passively do things for the team without really having to be kind of like a full support like a Mercy, a Lucio, kind of being that's their main or much more of a strict role, whereas Zenyatta is kind of like that real nice in between with an ultimate that can really do a lot, and especially at point taking.
Yeah, he's one of these, kind of mentioned with Roadhog earlier, that it's going to be interesting what this new game mode is, because if it is more of those, especially like a capture the flag, or something like a more single target 1v1s, like he's going to benefit in more than some others, I think. So that'll be exciting.
What do you say is your number 3 or number 4 right now in the competitive?
If I had to say number 3 again, just talking it out right there, that pretty much made it clear. Because Symmetra, if anything, she's just defensive, really. So yeah, I think that's where it hurts.
I completely agree with that. I want to see a really high level Zenyatta. I don't think we've seen it yet, and to me, one of the highest skill ceiling heroes in the game. I would love to see just someone who's really able to fully utilize that kit to its maximum effectiveness.
I'll be streaming once Overwatch comes back. So
that's right. So I'll be sure to tune in and make sure everyone else out there does the same. I think that's gonna do it tonight, Nick.
All right.
Yeah, so a great first podcast. I hope everyone out there likes it. Plan for this is to be a weekly thing, but we'll see how it goes. If you're happy with the product, great. Be sure to check back with us the next time we put out an episode. I think we're going to go over the competitive rankings for the DPS and the defensive classes. So if you are so inclined, you can follow Nick, BreakyCPK, however you would like to know him. Follow him on Twitter at BreakyCPK. Check out his YouTube channel, his Twitch channel. He's doing just about everything. Are you doing anything coming up anytime soon?
I mean, nothing very specific. I'm just still doing my Honcast thing, so got that going over there. But I mean, I'm sure a lot of people like a lot of people listening to this. I just want to play Overwatch, man. Yeah. I just wanted to come back and start playing it again. So hopefully that's soon. But no, I had a lot of fun. I really do appreciate you asking me to join you, and I look forward to making this perhaps a weekly thing here. So
yeah. Hope you guys liked it as well. So for Nick, who you can find on Twitter at BreakyCPK, I'm Heath Kruger at Carthac on Twitter. Thank you for tuning in.